So just to review quickly, because it's been a couple of weeks since we've last had our classes. In the previous chapters, we were talking about the comparison of Hashem's speech to our speech, right? We have the speech, human speech, the communication that we have with each other, how we talk and another person hears. And we talk about how we have Hashem's speech, right? God spoke to Moshe, or Hashem spoke and created the entire world through speech. What does that mean when you talk about speech? How does it compare godly speech to human speech? In which way is it the same? In which way is it different? And we said, really, it's very different. It's a whole different world. Because a human being, when a human being says something, when they talk, that the words that come out of their mouth become a separate entity from themselves. It separates. There's me, and there's the thing that I said. It's two separate things, and you can separate the two, right? I can walk away, the speech stays there, and I walk away. I'm not in the same, it's not connected to me anymore. Once it comes out of my mouth, it becomes its own separate thing. With Hashem, that's not the case. With Hashem, everything is Hashem. So when Hashem speaks, it is still Hashem. The speech that came out of Hashem is still one and complete unity with Hashem himself. The two are bound together, and there's no separation between Hashem and the speech that he said. But even more than that, we said that when we talk about speech of Hashem, it doesn't really mean speech. God has no mouth. God has no tongue. God doesn't talk. You can't speak about such words like speaking when you're talking about Hashem. It doesn't fit. It doesn't match up. These two words don't go together to talk about speech when you talk about Hashem. Why? Because you have two world perspectives. You have a divine perspective and a human perspective. From the human perspective, the world exists. We see a world that's really concealment. What we see is not really what exists. What we see is the lack of what exists, because the only thing that really exists is Hashem. All we see is the world around us, the physical world around us, which is the lack of godliness in the world. So what we're seeing is not the existence of Hashem. What we're seeing is the concealment of Hashem, which is the exact opposite of the truth, which is the divine perspective. From Hashem's perspective, Hashem exists and the world doesn't exist. Concealment is not real. Hashem is here. Hashem is revealed everywhere. So the reality is complete revelation, but what we see is complete concealment, which is an exact opposite of the reality that Hashem knows and believes and is the true existence, the only thing that really exists. And so when we talk about divine speech, Hashem talking, what we mean is revelation. Hashem is revealing something to us, which is what speech is. When I say something, I am revealing what is already within my heart, within my mind, my internal thoughts that previously nobody was able to know what I was thinking about. It was something that was deep within me that nobody else was able to know what was going on in my mind. But once I speak, I reveal what's going on in my mind. Now it's revealed. Now it's open for other people to hear and to see and to understand. And so that is what we talk about when we say divine speech. When we talk about divine speech, this is what we mean. It's divine revelation. How Hashem is revealing himself to us, that now we are able to understand, we're able to perceive something that previously was hidden, something that was concealed. So in other words, what we're saying is that our distance from Hashem is not the same as Hashem's distance from us. Because from us, from our side, we see distance. We see concealment. We see the lack of Hashem being here. But from Hashem's perspective, it's all about closeness. What we think is concealment is really godly revelation. God is revealed here, but we don't see it because it's covered over by godliness itself. the concealment that we see is actually godliness. And this is what we spoke about in the previous chapters. So now we start with a question. After all this explanation, after all this time that you're telling me that godly speech is not speech, it's not really speech. So we come to the obvious question. If it's not speech, why are you calling it speech? Why are you just confusing me by saying godly speech? If God doesn't speak, what's the purpose of that word? Why are we using this word that is not the correct word and it doesn't really explain what we're really talking about? We seem to be confusing things for no reason. But the answer is, the reason why we use these words is because the Torah was given for us to understand. Hashem gave us a Torah that we should learn it and we should understand what the Torah is telling us. And so we need to use words that human beings can understand. If the Torah wouldn't explain it as speech, which is something that we can understand, we wouldn't know what it's talking about. So the Torah goes and speaks in human language, uses human terminology, so that human beings can understand what's going on over here. Otherwise, we're completely lost in what's happening here. Even though it's not a proper metaphor, even though it doesn't really explain what we're actually trying to explain over here, but it's the best tool we have. If we don't use human language, then there's no way for us to perceive and understand the message that the Torah is trying to tell us. But in reality, Hashem doesn't fit into the human lexicon. Hashem doesn't fit into our way of communicating because Hashem is a different existence. Hashem is not part of the same reality that can be explained away with human terminology. But we do the best we can because that's what we have. That's what we have. It's the only thing that we can work with. And that's why we use words like speech. So although we said that Hashem's speech is not separate from Hashem, it is one with Hashem, it stays one with Hashem, and it never becomes a separate entity. But it does appear that way to us. From our perspective, what we see Hashem and Hashem's speech, two separate things. Because again, we're using human terminology and human way of understanding reality, which may not be real, but it's what we see, it's what we understand. It's the only thing that makes sense to us. The same way, it appears to us that the world is concealing Hashem. It looks to us like there's a physical world. We know deep down that there's a God behind the scenes that's moving all the pieces and making it all work and making it all happen. But we don't see that. All we see is a world. We see nature. We see a world that's going on, that's happening, that doesn't seem to be godly in nature. Because it's what we perceive. And that's all that, well, from our end, that's all we can get. We don't know the reality is different. We can learn that the reality is different by Hashem, but that's not what we can feel. It's not what we can connect with because it's not our reality. It's not our perspective. And so we describe, how does this happen? How does this concealment go about? That there is a process of, in Hebrew it's called tzimtzumim. In English we say constrictions. That there is a process of constrictions, one after another. And we described it as you have a great light. You have a very strong light that's shining into a room. And the light is too bright. If you look at the light, it can blind you. So what do? You put a curtain. The curtain is sheer, though. You can see through the curtain. But now the light is a little bit less intense, but it's still too intense. So you put another curtain, and a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one. And you line up these curtains. Each curtain is lessening the light a little bit more. It's the same light coming through. The light is still shining through the curtains, and you see the light in the room. But with each curtain, the light gets a little bit dimmer. And you're able to now appreciate the light until it comes to a point you can walk in front of the light, and you can look right at it, and your eyes don't even hurt. You're able to get the light without getting the pain involved. And this is the purpose of constrictions, that God created these curtains, that constrict the light, that block out the light. It creates a concealment. But the purpose of the concealment is not for concealment. The purpose of the concealment is for revelation, so that we can enjoy the godly light without getting overwhelmed. So that is the whole purpose of these constrictions, of these simtsumim that happens. And the same thing happens with speech. When you say something that is previously in your thoughts, it went through a process. The thoughts went through a process before they came out as words. First, you have a thought in your mind, which you can't even express. And then in your mind, you process that thought in a way that it's able to now be expressed to another person in a way that can come out, that it can be clear to another person. And then those thoughts are then put into words and divided up into letters. So there's a process that goes on in your mind with the speech as it comes out, similar to the process of the tzimtzumim that happens when godly revelation comes to the world through this different these processes, through these tzimtzumim. And through these tzimtzumim, through this process, through this concealment, we end up with a sort of evolution. Because you have evolution, we say it all started from one thing, and it divided up into many different types of animals, right? That's actually what happened with tzimtzumim, not with evolution as Darwin would say it. But this is how it happened with godly revelation. That you have a godly revelation that over time, through these, when I say over time, it's instant, but it's over time within the instant. Just as a thought in your mind comes out in speech in an instant, but there's that instant is divided up into many different instances, right? It took time for it to come out, although it feels like no time happened. So over time, over the process of these different constrictions, over the time of the process of these concealments, it created all sorts of different beings. All different creations that we see. We look around the world, we see many different types of creations. We don't see one type of creation, yet it all came from God's words. It all came from God's thoughts that he brought out, that he expressed with the revelation. But this revelation, through constrictions, divided up and turned into many different items. There's not just one type of creation, there's all types of creations. To the point that you have even negative creations. Even things that are negativity came from godly revelation. Things that are bad, things that are klipa, negative things also come from divine light, from godly revelation. How is that possible? It's like the ultimate paradox, right? You have Hashem himself is creating the forces that deny Hashem's existence. And Hashem didn't only create them, he's constantly nourishing them and giving them life and existence. Again, to the very things that are denying the existence of Hashem in the first place. It's the ultimate paradox. But Hashem's ultimate power is not in revelation. Hashem's ultimate power is in concealment. That is the ultimate power of Hashem. Where is Hashem? Hashem is not where you're looking. Hashem is where you're not looking. Because the ultimate revelation of Hashem is the concealment itself. The Baal Shem Tov said that a concealment that we can recognize is no longer a concealment. If you know where I'm hiding, I'm not hiding anymore. The whole point is that you don't know. You know deep down that I'm there, but you don't know it. There are two Hasidic tunes. They're both joyful tunes, and they're very interesting. The first one is, it's a pasuk from Isaiah. It's true. You are a God of concealment. We're singing that God is a God of concealment, which is a joyful tune, because again, this is the ultimate power of Hashem. The concealment is the power. The fact that he's concealing himself. Which brings us to another Hasidic tune, which is in Yiddish, this one. Siddachal tevel avoli meinoi milvadoi. It's all nothing. The whole world is nothingness. There is nothing but Hashem. Everything we see in the world is all nothingness. It doesn't exist. What exists? Hashem exists. Everything we see is a mirage. We're living in a fake world. We're living in an AI virtual reality. That's where we're living. It doesn't exist. It's all Hashem. It's all godliness. And so as soon as we recognize that he was really there the whole time, as soon as we recognize that everything is godliness, then there's no darkness. The darkness becomes light, because that's what it really is. The constrictions, the concealment is really all about revelation. That's all it really is. It looks like negativity, but it's not. It's all revelation. There is a story of the grandson of Reb Baruch of Mezhibush, who was a Hasidic Rebbe about 200 years ago. His grandson was once playing with his friends. He was playing hide and seek. And his sister was hiding. And he had a really good hiding place. He hid so well. They looked and looked. They couldn't find him. They thought he left. They went home. And he's hiding. And they're not looking for him anymore. They left. Eventually, he realizes that he's there all alone. Everybody left. And he came home crying. He comes into the house crying. So his grandfather sees him and he says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Nobody's looking for me. They stopped looking for me. I was hiding and they stopped looking for me." His grandfather says, "This is exactly what Hashem says. I'm hiding and they stopped looking for me. I want the Jewish people, I want my children to look for me. I'm hiding for the purpose. Hide and seek is not to hide. It's so they should find you. They should look for you and try to find you. Hashem is hiding and he wants us to find him and we stop looking. We're not looking for him." This is exactly what Hashem is saying. So the ultimate concealment is when we get so engrossed, we get so involved in the concealment that we forget that there's even someone hiding there. We forget that the concealment is a concealment. We lose track of everything. We forget who we are and where we are and what's going on over here. Which brings us to the concept of Elokim Acherim. What is Elokim Acherim? Literally, it means other gods. The Torah talks about you should not have any other gods. Lo yeh lacha Elokim Acherim. You should not have any other gods. How can you have another God? What does it mean another God? There's only one God. So if you dig down into the words Elokim Acherim, Acher means other God, but Acher also means the back. Right? Acher is a back. Elokim Acherim, where do these gods, these fake gods, where do they get their life from? Where do they get their existence from? We said everything comes from Hashem. Everything, including Klippa, including negativity, including idols. Everything gets its life force from Hashem. So where does this get? Where does the Klippa get its life force? Where do these other gods get their existence from? They get it from Hashem's back. They get from the backside. What does that mean from the backside? Sometimes you have to give somebody something, and you really don't want to. You can't stand the guy, but you have to give. You're forced to give it to them. So you give it to them, but they take it. I'm not giving it to you with a smile. I don't want to give it to you. I have to give it to you. Take it and go. Right? If you ever got a parking ticket, you really don't want to pay that parking ticket. You have no interest in giving them the money, but you got to pay. What are you going to do? You don't have a choice in the matter. You got to pay up. So you pay up, but it's not with a smile. I don't want to give you the money. Right? Like you have those guys who come to City Hall with a bag of pennies, right? They bring big bags of pennies. Here's the money. Take the money. It's begrudgingly. There's no joy in it. It's not with love. It's not with appreciation. It's okay, take it. Go on. I don't want to give it to you. Because although they were created with a purpose, they're not the ultimate goal. Think about any golfers here. Think about a golf course. On a golf course, you have hazards. Is that what they call it? Right? You have like the water or the sand, whatever. Yeah, you have these hazards, which as a golfer, the worst thing is for your ball to end up in one of the hazards. So then why do they have it? Maybe you should take it out. Why do they put the hazards there? So you don't want it there. But the whole fun of the game is that it's there and you avoid them. That's the whole fun. If they weren't there, then it would be boring. So they're part of the purpose. Yes, there's a reason why they were created. But your goal is not to get in them. Your goal is to stay out of them. You don't want to connect with these. You don't want to be involved in it. You want to be away from it. So Hashem's ultimate desire is for those who draw close to Hashem, those that are connected to Hashem, those that are positive things. He doesn't want negativity, but the other side has to exist. It has to exist. It needs life. So he gives it life. Begrudgingly, he throws it some life. Here's your pennies. But he doesn't want it. So why does it exist? What's the purpose? The purpose is so we have free will. If there's no free will, there's no reward and punishment. If I don't have a choice, want this one or that one, and make the right choice, then what am I getting rewarded for? What am I getting punished for? The idea of reward and punishment is that you have different options and you pick the right option. And so there has to be a concept of choice. In order to have a concept of choice, you have to have different kinds. You have to have options. And that's why the negativity, the klipa exists, not for its own sake. For its own sake, we don't need it. We don't want it. Hashem has no need for it. It's not there for itself. It's there for the purpose of serving God in a way with free will, and you can choose God in the proper way. Not everyone, but most people, if you ask them if they enjoy work, they'll tell you they can't stand work. They don't want to work. Nobody wants to go to work. So why do you work if you don't want to? I go to work because I need the money. I need the money to live. We don't want to work. We want the money. But in order to get the money, you have to go through something called work. You have to deal with it. It's part of life. Right? So these are things that we do. We have things that we want, but we don't really want them. We want them only for an ulterior motive, for the ultimate purpose, which is not it. This itself is not the purpose. So the other side, klipa, sitra achera, elokim acherim, the negativity does get life from Hashem, because everything gets life from Hashem in order to exist. It does have life from Hashem, but not the same way we do. It doesn't get it the same way we can get it. How does it happen? It has, unlike with us, where we have godly force, life force within us, living within us, giving us strength and giving us the ability to live and exist as all positive things. Negativity doesn't have Hashem's life force within it in the same way, because God doesn't want to embed himself into the negativity, into the klipa. He doesn't want to be part of it. He doesn't want anything to do with the evil. So what does Hashem do? Hashem kind of hovers over. It's above. It exists in above, and it's kind of letting down some life force, giving it the ability to go on. But it does need also something inside. It needs something to keep it going. And so there is a little bit of light. There is a little bit of light, tiny bit of light that does go into the negative things that gives it the ability to live. But this light is in a state of exile. It's in such a state of exile, it's, so to speak, disconnected from its source. It's disconnected from its source, and so that it conceal itself within something so concealed, it can go down into the klipa, into the negativity. And because the klipa is so disconnected from God, because it's only getting its light from above, or from this little bit of exiled light that is within it, it's basically dead. And so things that are klipa, things that are anti-God, so to speak, again, nothing can be anti-God, but anti-God's true desire, Anything that is within this realm is considered within the realm of death and impurity, because the lack of life is death. It's basically dead. And it's impure because it's a lack of true godliness there. It's missing the real life force, and therefore it belongs to that side. That's where it belongs. And so because you have its life force comes in such a different way, it comes from above, or it comes from this little bit of light that is in exile, disconnected from its source within it. Therefore, it gives it the ability to have something called idolatry. This is why you can have idols. This is why you can have things that claim to be God itself and deny the existence of Hashem. Again, the very one who creates and sustains it, it is denying its existence. How is it possible? Because it is so concealed. It is so disconnected from its source. It doesn't feel it anymore. It feels like it's getting its life from somewhere else. It feels like it's not coming from there. It must be something different. As we see by Pharaoh, just coming out of Passover now, out of Pesach. We see by Pharaoh. Pharaoh first said, I made the river. It's my river, it's my Nile, and I made it. This was stage one. And then he goes further. And he says, I created myself. I am the ultimate creator of myself. This is the ultimate denial of Hashem's existence. That there's one God who created everything. He says, no, I created myself. I don't need a God. Because Pharaoh was so arrogant. He was so full of himself. And arrogance is the equivalent to idolatry. You have to be very careful about arrogance. Because the core of idolatry, the step one, is thinking that I'm independent. I'm my own thing. I'm my own entity. I'm not reliant on somebody else. Once you have that sense of existence, then you come to the second stage, which is denial of Hashem completely. Because once if I'm something, what do I need God for? But the core of idolatry is thinking you're independent. It says in the Talmud that even the idols refer to Hashem as the God of all gods. He's the main God. He's the God of the gods. But I'm also a God. I'm also somebody. And this we come down to is the very root of all impurity. This sense of independence. We've spoken about this before. Hashem does not go into a partnership. You can't be arrogant and still be with godliness. God says, if you are arrogant, if you're full of yourself, I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. You're making no room for me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a place of arrogance. I want to be in a place of humility. That's where I feel comfortable. That's where I want to be. The Rambam, the Maimonides, he writes that in every path in life, there's different extremes, right? You can be stingy. You can be someone who doesn't, you're a miser, you don't spend any money. Or you could be someone who's throwing out money, just wasteful. Which one should you be? Which extreme should a person go to? The Rambam writes, choose the middle path. Don't be extreme. Don't be an extreme person. Don't be too nice. Don't be too mean. Don't be too miserly. Don't be too extravagant. You should find a middle path. Extreme ideas are not the right way to go. There are certain situations, not going to get into it, but in general, the Maimonides says the ideal path is the middle path. But there's one exception to that rule. There is one thing that Maimonides says, don't go with middle path. Take it extreme. Go all the way to the right, get away from it as far as you can go. And that is arrogance. When it comes to arrogance, he says, don't take the middle path. Take the extreme level of humility. You should have zero arrogance. Nothing at all. That is the right path. That is the path of every single person. So when we talk about arrogance, we have to be very, very careful. We want to go as far away as possible. The word I in Hebrew is ani, right? Ani is 3 letters. Aleph, Nun, Yud. Ani. Our goal is to take the ani and flip it around. Make it Aleph Yud Nun. Aleph Yud Nun means Ein. Nothing. Don't exist. Turn the ani into Ein. Turn the I into nothing. That's our goal. The story of Yeshua Heschel of Apta. Yeshua Heschel of Apta, he was a great rabbi, and he was traveling. On his travels, he came to a certain town, and as often was the case, a great rabbi would come to town. Many people would come and they would offer to host. They wanted the zchut, the honor of hosting this great man, this holy man in their house. And so two people came and they really wanted to host him. And he had to choose between his two options. There was two people. The first one was a great Torah scholar, very learned man. He knew a lot of Torah, the great scholar. The other one was a simple man. But the Torah scholar was very arrogant. Look at all this Torah. Look at my accomplishments. Look what I've done. Look what I've done in my life. He was a very arrogant man. On the other side, the simple man was very humble. Who am I? I'm a nobody. But I'd like the honor, the zchut of hosting this great rabbi. Who did he choose? He chose the humble, simple man. He didn't want to be with the great Torah scholar. He didn't want to be in a place of arrogance. He would rather be in a place of humility. And that's the place that he chose to be in. There's also a story of Rabbi Aaron Kerliner. Rabbi Aaron Kerliner was a student of the Maggid of Mizrich. And one time he was sitting at home, and there's a knock on the door. And he says, "Who's there?" And the guy says, "It's me." He ignores him, doesn't answer the door. A few minutes later, again, there's a knock on the door. "Who's there?" "It's me. Let me in." Ignores him, doesn't respond. And the guy keeps knocking. The guy's not giving up. "Come on, let me in already. Who is it? It's me. Come on, open up." And he's not answering. He's not opening the door. Finally, the guy says, "It's me." And he says his name. He says his name. I'm a friend of yours. We studied together by the Maggid. Baron Kleiner opens the door. And he says, "You claim you're a student of the Maggid. You're a student of the Maggid and you say me? How could you say me? We know there is no me. There's no me. Who could it be? How could you be me? Me doesn't exist. It's not a word that we use." And when his friend heard this, he broke down. He says, "You're so right. I obviously need to go back and restudy everything." He turned around, went back to the Maggid, went back to school to learn more. He says, "I'm not ready yet to go out to the world. If I'm able to use such words as me to say it's I, these words shouldn't exist in our lexicon." One more story. The story of a tailor. This guy was a master craftsman, a master tailor, that he would make dresses and suits and all kinds of beautiful things and he was a very high demand. People would come to him, and he was very good, a Jewish guy, and he was very good at his craft of making clothing for nobility. Made beautiful stuff. One day he got the ultimate commission. The prince himself came to this guy and he says, "I heard that you're a master craftsman. I'd like you to make me a new suit." This was the ultimate honor. He says, "Of course, I'd be honored to do that." He measured him and he started working on the suit. He made a beautiful suit. He's very proud of this beautiful suit that he made. And he came to the prince and he presented him with his beautiful creation, takes it out. The prince looks at it, gives one look and says, "Yeah, disgusting. What an embarrassment. This is what you bring to me. This is horrible. I would never walk around in that." Just throws him out. "I don't want anything to do with this." The tailor is completely broken. "I put so much work into it. I did such beautiful work. How could it be? How could you throw me out like that?" He was so hurt. He was so broken. He quickly ran to the rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, what do I do? It's a beautiful suit. I don't know what happened." The rabbi says, "Here's what you should do. I want you to take apart the entire suit. Take apart every stitch where you put the pieces together. Take apart every piece. Divide all the pieces back up and restitch it exactly the same way. Put every stitch back exactly where it was before. Take it all apart to put it all back. Okay, the rabbi says he does. He goes home, takes apart the entire suit, puts it all back together, exactly the same suit. The rabbi says, now go back to the prince and present it again. He goes back to the prince. He brings the suit, and he doesn't. What's the prince going to say? He comes in, and the prince looks and says, "Wow, now we're talking. That's a beautiful suit you made me. This is what I was looking for. It's fantastic. I'm going to reward you greatly. This is exactly what I was looking for." So happy. The tailor leaves the prince and he comes back to the rabbi and he says, "Rabbi, I don't understand. What's going on over here? It was the exact same suit, the exact same stitches. That redid everything exactly the way it was. What was the difference?" The rabbi says, the first time, every stitch was done with arrogance. Every stitch, you were full of yourself. You were so proud of yourself. You saw yourself as such a great guy, such an amazing tailor. You saw that you were your stitches were full of arrogance. Arrogance is ugly. The prince looked at your suit, he saw arrogance. But the second time, you did it with humility. The second time, every stitch was filled with humility, and he saw humility in the suit, and that was beautiful. That's what made the suit beautiful the second time. The Zohar says that the lower worlds, the worlds that we live in, the worlds of Klippa, it calls it mountains of separation. Because this world, the Klippa in this world elevates itself and separates us from Hashem. When the mountains elevate, they rise themselves up. They become a separation, blocking off Hashem from us, and thereby denying the oneness of Hashem. It allows the illusion of anything else to exist besides for Hashem, which of course is only an illusion. It cannot be. Nothing can exist besides for Hashem. Everything that we see, everything that happens is all Hashem, is all godliness. And this is how Klippa can exist in the world. This is what Klippa is. Klippa sees itself as something unique, something independent, which is how it exists in this world. And so the purpose of this chapter is to teach us. The message of this chapter is explaining to us how concealment works. The concealment that we have, the concealment that we see in the world, is really God's greatest power. It's really God's revelation. God is revealing himself through concealment. What looks like the biggest issue is really the greatest blessing. And this is a message for us in our daily lives. So many times in life, we see something and we see, oy vey, the world is going wrong. Oh, look at this bad thing that happened to me. Look at this terrible tragedy. And we see so much negativity in the world. The message is, there's no such thing as negativity. Nothing negative exists on its own. Negativity is godliness. Concealment is revelation. What we see in the world is what really exists, is nothing. What really exists is godliness. That's all it is. And this is the ultimate message for us to live our lives. This is how we can live our lives, seeing the world in a positive way, seeing how concealment is really our greatest blessing. And that is chapter 22 of the Tanya.